Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. You are watching Terry's Tribe, and I'm your host, Terry Wells Brown. I'm the author of the Women of Wine Country series. T. Wells Brown is my writing name. And just stay tuned because the 5th book is coming out the end of September. It's with my beta and alpha readers now. So exciting. So you want to make sure that you get the 4th book, Babies and Badass, before the 5th book launches because it's free right now. So go check out my author page or my reader group, T. Wells Brown or Terry's Tribe, and you'll be able to get it for free, the ebook. But then after September, it's gone. Also, the paperback for that is available on Amazon, came live today. So today I want to introduce you to a very nice gentleman. His name is Joel Weddington, and he's actually a member with me at my writing group here in the San Joaquin Valley. And that's how I met Joel. So welcome to the show, Joel. Joel is the author.
Good morning, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm excited to have you here. Joel's the author of A Very Human Mission. And I thought that was really cool. If you read his bio, which I'll put in the links here for the video, you'll see that he's an author or a doctor as well as an author. And he also has been to numerous places and done a lot of research. So I wasn't 100% sure it was fiction or nonfiction because of his background. He could have written either one. So can you tell us a little bit about first your experience going out and what kind of got you out into the world?
Sure. You're asking about my book, right? I just got my advanced reader copy. I want to show that off. I'm really happy how the cover came out. The book is about highly advanced extraterrestrials who are aware that the Earth is having a very tough time and want to help. They want to help humanity. And one chooses to be born as a human and try to live a life of goodness. He impulsively picks a traumatic childhood and has a real tough time. So that sets up the main conflicts in the story.
That's so cool. So tell me, in your bio, you talk a lot about that you had gone and I'm trying to look real fast. Okay, so India, Japan, you've been to a lot of places and met with some pretty fantastic people. So can you tell us what prompted your travels?
You know, I did, and as a child, I was always fascinated by things beyond the earth, by UFOs, by God, religion. I studied metaphysics as a teenager. I meditated. So when I finally reached adulthood and I had the means to travel, I went on a spiritual journey, and I went to India and Japan and actually met spiritual masters and practiced with them and tried to follow their teachings. And I discovered a lot about myself and also about our place as humans in the universe. And
Wow,
so I came up with a very big picture.
that's fantastic. So was that discovery and those travels, was that part of how you developed your book?
It was, and I've always wanted to write. I've read science fiction voraciously when I was a kid, and I always imagined that I would write a science fiction book someday. So finally the day came. I'm starting to cut back from doctor work and have a little more time, and I conceived of writing this book that just kind of puts everything together. My childhood, my spiritual journey, UFOs, extraterrestrials, and it was quite an outline. I actually had to keep narrowing it down to put it all into one book, but I think I pretty much got there.
So this is the first book in a series, right?
Right.
How many
And,
books do you have right now slated for this series?
about 10. I'm pretty ambitious, so I think I'll be able to write 10 books in about 5 to 10 years. That's my goal. I've already outlined the second one, and I'm just starting to write it now.
Oh, that's fantastic. So when does your book launch? When does this book come out?
So it comes out next week, September 8th. It's already on Amazon in Kindle format and paperback, so people can order it. And then it will actually start shipping next week. That's the launch date. And I've also got an audiobook in production. A lot of my friends and family have said, well, I want an audiobook. I don't like to read. So the audiobook's going to be done in October.
That's fantastic. Audiobooks are amazing. They're consumed, and especially when the pandemic is kind of behind us, I think there's going to be a surge in audiobooks because a lot of us are going to jump in our cars and go places.
Yeah, I think so. I was lucky to find a husband and wife team to do the male and female parts, and they're really clever the way they're doing it. I think the audiobook's gonna be a
Fantastic. How exciting. So if anybody's interested after this interview, if you'd like to go check out Joel's work, you can go over to Amazon. He's already got the books there. They're ready to go. So I've got a list of questions here that I'm going to ask you, and then we'll follow up the end of it with questions that I ask every author I interview. You ready?
Sure, I'm ready.
Okay, so tell us about the human mission. Why do you call your book A Very Human Mission?
When I started outlining the book, I came up with the idea to tell the story from the perspective of an extraterrestrial who's coming to Earth. So it kind of starts out in the first person, and then I thought, well, why is he going to Earth? It's kind of a mission to do something, and it's going to be human, and he's going to forget his extraterrestrial identity, so it's going to be very human. So as a human on Earth, he has no idea where he's from, who he is. He just starts out with a blank slate like all the rest of us.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you believe there are aliens who want to help us and that they would choose to be born as humans to do so?
I really like to think so. You know, and as a kid reading science fiction and about UFOs, most of the stories are pretty negative. We have really bad aliens that want to come and exploit our planet and make us slaves and basically conquer us. But there's also some stories of good aliens, and I like to think that the good aliens would want to help us. Then the question is, well, how can they help us? And so we know about flying saucers and UFOs, and they don't seem to do too much to help. So I came up with the idea, actually based on some books that tell these kinds of stories, that there are extraterrestrials that actually incarnate as humans. Their soul can go to Earth and enter a womb and be born as a human, and they've got some kind of little inner drive that sort of tells them they have to help and be good. And that was kind of the basis for the good alien story in my book.
That's fantastic. And is it just one, or is this like something that's been happening over a long period of time, all of humanity, or is this a one-off?
Yeah, actually, the bigger picture is there was a series of books that came out in the 1980s. There were 5 books called The Raw Material, Law of One, and they were said to be channeled by a higher extraterrestrial intelligence, and they told this story. And the story is that there are actually probably millions of extraterrestrial souls incarnated as humans right now, going around and in their own way trying to be of service and hopefully end up helping and not knowing their true identity. Actually, one of the hallmarks is that people who are said to maybe have this extraterrestrial soul, when they're in their human body on Earth, they kind of have a feeling that this isn't their real home. And I've actually had friends that resonated with that. They say, you know, I can't believe I'm from this planet. I really think I'm from out there, and they'll kind of point to the stars. So there's kind of a vibe that comes up when you start talking about it. And some people go, hey, you know, maybe I'm from somewhere else. I'm not originally from this planet. Of course, you have to believe that there's a soul. I mean, some people don't. And perhaps believe in reincarnation, that the soul actually is reborn. It's not just a one lifetime.
I think that you're right, and I think a lot of people would resonate with the idea that, because I think every single one of us at one time or another don't feel like we fit in, right? So that you're going to have a wide-reaching audience, I believe, with that concept. Tell us about your main character and what is his goal.
The main character is named Newman. There's a whole story about how he got his name, and actually extraterrestrials on his planet, which is near the galactic center. It's far away. It's orbiting a red giant sun. Don't really need names. I've sort of given them names in this story so we can identify with them. But Newman is very sensitive. He's aware that there's a lot of suffering and trouble going on the Earth, and he wants to help. He's also very impulsive, so he doesn't want to take his time. So when he collaborates with his teachers and his elders on how to help, he comes up with the idea of a human mission. Instead of taking his time and picking a good birth, he kind of rushes in and impulsively picks this traumatic birth, this woman who becomes his mother, and he ends up being in a very traumatic childhood. So a lot of the story is a very human mission of trying to overcome this traumatic childhood and survive. And that's really sets him up to change a lot. So he has to change actually as a human and repair the psychological damage, go on a spiritual journey, which was inspired by my own spiritual journey. And then finally, at the end of his life, he dies and he's able to return to his home planet.
Oh,
And
wow.
the stakes are high because if he can't live a life of goodness, if he kind of fails, he'll end up being reincarnated over and over as a human until he finally gets it right.
Oh, and that's kind of like a Buddhist theory or philosophy, isn't it? Where you kind of come back until you learn the lesson you're supposed to learn, and then you can move on.
Yes, that's right. Most of the world's religions actually, in their deeper teachings, believe in reincarnation. I think Christianity is probably the only major religion that doesn't really believe it. But some Christians believe that too. But yeah, that's the idea, is that you have to keep learning lessons until you're free of the need to be a human on Earth. And then you can go to the next level, so to speak.
So you said that he's born into a mother where that he ends up having a childhood that's very traumatic. Did he do that on purpose, or was it a mistake?
It was basically a mistake. And I kind of got the idea, it's kind of the what if. What if the alien was impulsive and didn't want to wait? He was very impatient. What would happen? And then I came up with the idea, well, if he's not careful, he'll just end up going into a easy birth where there's no other soul that wants to be born into that life. And the idea, and this is kind of from metaphysics and some new age materials, the idea is that there's a lot of souls trying to be born on Earth right now because it's a really intense experience, and souls can learn a lot, but the souls generally want to be born into a good life, so there's a lot of competition to be born into a good life. But it's easy to be born into a bad life because nobody wants to go there, so he sort of rushes into this bad life where there's no competition and ends up in this difficult experience.
Wow, that's like very iconic, especially with everything that's going on right now. We've got like that reflects in so many different ways. People could use that to apply to their own lives in a lot of ways, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Even searching for the meaning of one's life. I mean, a lot of people are pretty content and they go through life and they don't think about why am I here? What am I supposed to do? But people who encounter challenges and traumas and things like that, they often end up asking the question, why is this happening to me? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? So to set this up in the story in the context of a alien soul who gets into this difficult life and then tries to figure out what's going on and ends up on a spiritual journey. I was hoping that could be inspiring to readers who might be facing those kinds of challenges too.
Yeah, for sure. You said that he almost dies. Does he have somebody that helps him?
Yes, he when he's when he's being traumatized as a child, there's a couple of events that are really brutal. And he has a mentor back in his home planet. Actually, I call her angelic mentor. She's in a higher dimension, and the beings on his planet have teachers from a higher dimension. She feels so badly for him that she incarnates as a human on Earth, and she's born as a girl, and she spends many years trying to find him, and she finally finds him. It's too late to be of much help because he sort of pulled himself up by his bootstraps, but they end up getting married, and actually she does help him in the end, but I won't give it away too much.
Yeah, you don't want to give the whole book away. Now, does he end up realizing that he's not of this planet and that this is a mission he's chosen, or is this something that we don't get in the first book?
No, he never does. He never realizes where he's from. He makes a lot of spiritual discoveries about himself and about the nature of reality. He gets into a studying consciousness and really explores the human nature of things fully. But he's never aware that he's from another planet. And he gets the idea that he has to be of service. He has to end up living a positive life, kind of a more good than bad. And he's driven to do that. But he ends up ending his life, basically dying from a virus, which could be this pandemic, and going
Wow.
back to his home planet, not knowing if he succeeded or not.
So let me just ask you this. The woman who marries him is his spiritual mentor. Does she know that he is who he is and that she is who she is? Does she have to be born into a human body as well?
Yes, yeah, and actually, as a human, she doesn't know. And this kind of goes to something called the veil of forgetting. This is not something I made up. It again goes back to books that were written years ago that cover this kind of material. The veil of forgetting is a kind of a cosmic law that all souls born into human life have to forget their previous life. And
Wow.
that's unique to humans, that other beings on higher levels don't have to go through that. They can remember all their past lives, but we're assigned to this experience of having to forget because it sort of makes things more intense. We really have to get it in the present. We can't relax. We have to overcome all this human stuff to go on and basically go to the next level of existence.
Yeah. Wow. So book is science fiction, but it sounds like it's got a lot of philosophical attributes that people can identify with.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. It is, it's sort of science fiction. There's a fantasy element though. Some science fiction readers would actually be disappointed because it doesn't follow all the known laws. It doesn't. It even goes beyond Einstein relativity and Newtonian physics. It gets into metaphysics. So some of the metaphysics where a being can travel to another planet by thought, it doesn't follow the speed of light. And people say, well, it's going to take them 1,000 years to get there. No, it doesn't, because there's no body going. There's just consciousness. And so the science fiction reader could be a little disappointed. So there's definitely elements of fantasy.
I think a lot of science fiction books have fantasy, and fantasy will pick up some science fiction elements as well. I think the genres tend to cross over quite often. I mean, Dragon Riders of Pern, that's a great example. I don't know if you're familiar with that series.
No, I definitely had a hard time. There's a lot of subgenres of science fiction too, and I had a hard time figuring out which one. The next book I'm writing, which is takes the story farther. Actually, I have a writing coach who's an expert in science fiction, and he says it's going to create a new genre of science fiction.
Good. That's great.
Humans. Yeah, it could be fun.
That's really cool. They say you can't write any new things anymore, but maybe we can create new subgenres.
Yeah, and I had a really hard time comparing this to other books. Some people say, well, what books can you compare it to? And I can list 5 or 6 books that have some element that's in common, but nothing where there's a fiction story of a extraterrestrial intelligence being born as a human on Earth.
So this first book is this being coming and living a human life. Is the second book like another life? Is it another extraterrestrial, or is this another attempt for him to get it right?
Yeah, the second book is actually picks up from part of the story of the first book, where Newman from the faraway planet had a best buddy named Omen. And Omen incarnated on Earth also when Newman was in medical. Newman became a doctor, which of course, that's what I know. I wrote about becoming a doctor. Newman became a doctor in his human life. And when he was in medical school, his best buddy from the faraway planet wanted to come and help him. So he incarnated into a lawyer, family of lawyers, and became a lawyer. Uh, of course, he didn't know who he was. They ended up meeting each other and having some actually conflict, which sets up the second book. The second book is that Omen, who's incarnated on Earth, is in a wealthy family of attorneys, wealthy and powerful, and he gets kind of seduced and goes on the dark side, and he becomes basically this power-hungry kind of maniac who's destroying people. And
Wow.
upsets Newman. Newman's back on his home planet after finishing his human life, and Newman is upset by that and wants to go and fix Omen. So Newman goes back to Earth, but he doesn't incarnate. He comes back in his alien body and tries to meet Omen, and that pretty much sets up the second book.
That's fabulous. That sounds very intriguing. I think you're going to do very well. Your book
Yeah,
sounds really good.
I'm having a lot of more fun with the second book. The first book, basically, I tried to learn how to write a book. I've never written a book before.
My book, my coach, because I had a writing coach as well, said your first book will always be your first book. You just got to get it out there, and you're going to learn so much from your first book. You won't know what you don't know until your readers get their hands on your first book.
Oh, that's well said. I think I fit right into that.
I think all of us do. Every single one of us. Yeah. And now I go back and read my first book. I'm finishing my fifth book, and I've come so far, and I've only been publishing for a year.
Wow.
I just had my first year anniversary in August. And so the amount that I've learned in a year is incredible. And I think with writing, it's something that you're always evolving and you're always learning if you're smart, or not smart, but if it's your passion, right?
5 books in 1 year? Is that you wrote 5 books in 1 year?
Yes. Well, 4 books. My fifth book's coming out. August 31st was my publishing debut. And so I celebrated 1 year anniversary. So so yeah, basically I've written 5 books in a year. Yes.
That's really inspiring. I'm glad you shared that because I have a long list I want to go through.
So I've been writing since I was 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
So writing for me is very easy. I just wasn't writing for other people. And I didn't ever think that anybody would ever want to read my writing. My husband got his hands on a couple of my chapters when I was sick. I had battled a very bad illness that I've completely recovered from, so it's great. So the illness ended up being a blessing in disguise. I think it was a God thing, personally. My husband got a hold of some of my chapters because I wrote in scenes, because it was just scenes that I cared about writing. And he was like, "What are you doing? Why aren't you writing?" And so a year later, here I am.
I put writing on hold for my entire career, and now that I'm in my 60s, I can finally start to slow down and it's so funny when I write, I'll sit there for 10 or 12 hours, and I don't know where the time went, and then I don't want to go back to work. I don't want to do my day job.
I'm with you. In fact, I was doing the same thing and straddling both, where we have a construction company where I ran the construction company and then wrote on my spare time. And just this last year, since we celebrated the 1 year, this last month, my husband said, and my son, they're the contractors, said, "You know what? You do the writing, let us do our business, and we just want you to write full time." So now I'm shooting for a book a month over this next year. We'll see what happens. Giving myself a break in December, but we'll see if I can pull that off. But even if I can do a book every 2 months, then
That's fantastic. So you don't have a problem with writer's block. It just keeps coming, huh?
I literally have 70 books outlined right now. The stories are yelling at me to get out.
Wow.
The only issue I had was this fifth book when the pandemic hit. Fear. I was so afraid. I have grandbabies, and I had a pregnant daughter-in-law, and my companion. I'm a dog mom. The only female I had, she was my companion for 13 years. She passed away, and then the grief kind of got me, and I had writer's block. but for this fifth book, I kind of channeled that all into the book. And so now this book's going to be really emotional, but I don't suffer from writer's block. No, I have more stories than I have time to get out. So that's one nice thing.
Well, that's super inspiring. Yeah, when I thought of this line of stories of aliens incarnated on Earth, and sort of through the books, I'm hoping to share useful information to people, almost in a self-help. Like, they won't know it; it's not preachy, but by the time they end up reading the end of the full book, they'll kind of have some tips on how to look at life differently, and philosophies, and maybe even overcome a few challenges. So that's one of the main inspirations, is to keep doing that and try to be, the books are actually helping people in some way.
So those are the best kinds of books. The best kinds of books to me, and I'm a ferocious reader, are the books that I read for entertainment and end up, when I'm done, going, wow, I'm a little bit better of a person because I read this book. Or I have a few more skills now, or, whatever that I glean from it other than just entertainment. So it sounds like your books are going to do amazing, and that I'm really excited to get my hands. I'm going to go order, as soon as we get off of here, I'm going to go to Amazon and I'm going to order one of your books. So I'll read it and I'll leave you a review.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. And trust me, the next one will be better. I actually got professional beta readers to read it, and they just tore it up. And I revised it 3 or 4 times, but I finally had to, like you said, I had to call it quits and just push it out there, knowing that I could keep rewriting and rewriting. So
yeah.
The second one will be better. If there's anything in this one that you don't like, it's going to get better.
So here's the thing. I kept saying that too when my first book came out. I kept saying, well, my second book's so much better, and my third book's going to be even better, and da-da-da. But I have to tell you, a lot of the gals who read the first book love the first book. So while you look at it and think, I could do so much better, or I could change this, or my writing's going to get better, all of that might be true. Your readers don't know that. They just fall in love with your book and the premise of your book. So kind of let that happen. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah. I think the first book, you're going to go through a whole gamut of emotions about the book. So, yeah, and beta readers are there to beat you up, but they're also they have opinions about things. So
yeah.
Let it go and let the book go. It sounds amazing to me. I can't wait to read it, and I think it's going to be great. I'm going to share it in all of my groups. I have quite a few readers groups as well, and I'll share it in my readers groups.
Oh, nice, thanks. And if there's any way I can share this too, I will. We have a family gathering coming. I'll put it out on the table and make sure people have a chance to.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions I'm going to ask you. We're coming up on our time, but I want to get a couple of more questions out for you. There are things that I ask all my writers. Now, this is your first book, so you may not be able to answer all my questions exactly, but just do the best you can. So okay. You said that your favorite genre to read in is sci-fi?
Yes, that's sci-fi, that's right.
Yeah, and so what's your second favorite genre to read in?
Well, without going into nonfiction, I guess it would be fantasy, Lord of the Rings, things like that.
Epic fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I love fantasy. I actually didn't write fantasy to start off with because I wasn't confident enough. And so now I have a fantasy series slated to come out next year.
Wow. That's exciting.
Sci-fi and fantasy's tough. So God bless you. And I can't wait. It's have your first book be sci-fi or fantasy is really amazing. Sounds like you did the work though. So, So how long did it take you to write this book?
About 3 or 4 months. And while I was working my day job at the same time, so it could have been quicker. I mean, when I sit down and write, it actually goes really quickly. I actually spent about 4 months outlining it and going to courses and making sure I had my outline right. One instructor said, your outline is too complicated. You need to totally change it. And so which was true. I ended up whittling it down. But once I started writing it, it goes pretty quick.
Well, I noticed that so you've got your plotter and your pantser, right? So it sounds like to me you're a plotter, that you like to outline extensively and get your world built and all of the philosophy and all that behind it. When you go to write, then do you turn into a pantser where the story goes off and does its own thing, or do you stay pretty true to your outline?
I stay pretty true to the outline, and I go back and change the outline if I have to, and then write it again. So I'm a really hardcore plotter. It may just come from all the years of medical training, writing medical reports, and doing medical research. So I'm very much a plotter. It's kind of a fantasy to sit down and write a book without plotting it. Maybe I'll try that someday.
Yeah, you should. That would be great.
Yeah.
And so your plans are to release a book every year over the next 10 years. Is that what you said?
Yeah, one or two a year. And if I actually stop working next year, which is my goal, my wife is actually starting a second career, so that's given me a kind of an early retirement. I would write two a year easily.
Yeah, I think that would be great if you could get two a year out. Readers that fall in love with your work will just follow you to the ends of the earth and just be on bated breath to get out, to read the next thing you get out. So you'll find that when you start dedicating full time to your work, that it flows a little bit easier too.
I'm looking forward to it.
So now I'll post all the links on where everybody can get a hold of you for your book. Usually we would have a release party and a book signing and all that, but we can't do that in 2020. So what are you planning in the future as far as parties going and that kind of thing?
I actually don't have any concrete plans. I've actually used one of the big self-publishers, Publish. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're actually getting pretty big. And I've sort of turned a lot of that over to them. They're doing an ad campaign with Amazon and Facebook. They're setting that up right now. They're organizing my launch, and they've also sent the book out for reviews. So I don't have any specific event lined up. I'll have to think about that, though. Thanks for asking.
Well, I think then just after the pandemic or the vaccine or whatever gets us all back together, we'll need to have a big book signing.
Yeah, that would be fun. And I've also heard authors can get together and kind of have an event and have multiple book signings at the same time. But yeah, I would love to do that. Go to the library and give a talk, things like that. So hopefully that will come in the not too distant future.
Awesome. So everybody stay tuned. We'll have Joel out somewhere sometime. We'll let you guys know when he's going to be out. Luckily for me, I live in wine country and my books are about wineries. So I just throw my book signings at wineries and, it goes really well.
Oh, nice.
All right, everybody.
Thank you very much, Terry. I really.
Yeah, I'm glad you were here, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your book. So hold it up again for us. A Very Human Mission. Yeah.
This is Newman, actually, and this is his childhood on Earth. And then you have the big blue planet where he's from, and then the Earth is over here. So
it's a great cover. It's a great cover.
Whole universe.
Did you hire a cover artist?
I designed it myself. Yeah, I did. I gave him all the what I wanted to see, and he came up with it just pretty much right out of my brain.
It's really nice. I like it a lot. It's very eye-catching. It'll do quite well. Yeah. All right, Joel. Well, thank you.
I've had people tell me. Thank you.
No, go ahead. What do people tell you?
I've had people tell me they want to buy the book just from seeing the cover.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
You need to get it framed. We get one that doesn't have author copy across it and get it framed. My husband did that for my books. I've got a wall here full of my books that are framed.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I'll go buy your book now, and I encourage everybody to go grab his book off Amazon. It's going to be amazing, and it sounds like we can all glean something from it. And we really appreciate you coming on to Terry's Tribe.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care, everybody.
Okay, thanks so much. And all right, everybody, remember, go grab Babies and Badass before it stops being free. The paperback's available on Amazon, and everybody stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.